VocalEye Almost Live Zoom, Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, hosted by Amy Amantea, with special guest J.J. Hunt.
So a big welcome to you all to this VocalEye Almost Live event. My name is Amy Amantea, my pronouns are she, her, and I am the Associate Director here at VocalEye. I'm your host for these Almost Live events, and I'm a member of this community and very proud to be so. I would not be in such a wonderful shared space with you all and feel so lovingly embraced by you all, and I love you all so much. So thank you for inviting me into the space and sharing your Wednesday nights with me night after night after night. I really appreciate that. So thanks again for all of the support of VocalEye, for any financial contributions that folks have made. Those really support the organization. And of course, the testimonials you write, the beautiful messages, the words of encouragement, the words of how the programming impacts you all. Please keep sharing those. Our funders appreciate those. We appreciate those. So thank you for all of the words of kindness and impact that you share with us. And for folks who are watching this particular episode on our YouTube channel, you can also support us. You can always make a donation through our website at www.vocaleye.ca. But also you can, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and subscribe for our newsletter as well. So please connect with us in any way that you would like to. VocalEye is broadcasting to you all from the traditional and unceded or stolen lands of the Coast Salish peoples, in particular the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nation. So this is colonially known as Vancouver, British Columbia. And as we embark on Halloween, I was curious about how Indigenous peoples may celebrate or receive Halloween, as it is very much a holiday that is a colonized holiday, so to speak, a settler's holiday. And so I thought I would do a little bit of digging, a little bit of research. And as you can imagine, as is some of the things that I've tried to educate myself about in the past, it is not easy to find some of this information. So I started to look at the history of perhaps where Halloween had come from in terms of its history. So here's a little bit of what I found, and I'm going to connect the dots for you. Samhain, I hope I'm pronouncing that right because it's a Celtic word. So it's the word for the Celtic feast day, which is said to have given rise to what we know as Halloween. It was also said to be the time when the veil between the world of the other world is lifted. So the veil of the other world is lifted, okay? And that the fairies can come through of the dead and connect with the real world. So this is a chance where the folks and our families who have passed can come through and connect with the real world. And in the 19th century, Halloween came en masses to North America with Irish and Scottish immigrants. However, it wasn't until the first decade of the 20th century that this holiday began to be celebrated coast to coast by all sorts of people in North America. And this is cited from a paper called Halloween, From Pagan Ritual to Party Night by Nicholas Rogers. So that's coming from his research. And the commercialization of Halloween started in the 1900s when postcards and die-cut paper decorations were produced. So there you can see the influence of capitalism on Halloween. So much of what Halloween is today is really about capitalism, is selling us the decorations, the propaganda of decorating and celebrating the holiday. So while I was doing some research about how Indigenous peoples feel about capitalism and Halloween and how it relates to colonization, I did come across a survey that was taken. And here are some results of what Indigenous peoples in North America had reported. And they captured some of these quotes as a subsect of this survey. And I just want to read some of these to you. So overall, more than half of the people that had responded to this survey, these are Indigenous folks in North America, said that they saw Halloween in a mostly positive light, with many of them sharing that they participated in things like various activities, mostly associated with North American Halloween traditions, like hosting and attending community feasts and parties, or setting up haunted houses or trick-or-treating opportunities for young children. But about 10% of them held negative views on the holiday. Some community members citing that colonization is the reason that they don't celebrate Halloween. One response in particular wrote that, quote, "My family is decolonizing our minds family. Therefore, we don't celebrate Halloween or any other American holiday." Similarly, another respondent wrote that they believe that, quote, most tribes are celebrating because we have lost our culture and we don't have anything else to celebrate," end quote. And the paper points to this as a comment on the cultural issues that are surrounding colonization that Indigenous peoples are still experiencing to this very day. And so I dug just a little bit further into some of the things that capitalism and Halloween connects to colonization. And there's one more thing that I want to share with you that I think is really important as an example. So one of the things that is both inappropriate and has been a part of what continues to be a profound harm to Indigenous peoples is the appropriation of their likeness as Halloween costumes. And some of you may have heard me say in our pre-show chit chat that I'm going to call out the Disney costume of Pocahontas. It's shocking how easy it is to acquire a Pocahontas costume online or any other appropriated regalia that has been manufactured by settler people for settler people to dress up as, air quotes, novelty natives. This is in poor taste, but it's more than that. It's more than just in poor taste because it insults Indigenous traditions, it objectifies Indigenous cultures, and it turns it into a commodity. It enhances and promotes the stereotypes and perceptions of Indigenous peoples. And I think about before I had done any research on colonization and Indigenous peoples, the folks that were here on this land before I, a settler white person, got here, and all of the times that I knew people in my life who had dressed up with feathers in their hair or in regalia that had fringe on it and in pigtails and all sorts of things to make themselves look like Pocahontas and other characters of this sort, and how we never gave it a second thought. So if you know people that are thinking about dressing like this for Halloween, share with them this information, encourage them that this is not appropriate behavior, that this is appropriation, and that this is not how we respond and respect and engage in truth and reconciliation. So that's what I have to offer you in how I have learned a little bit about Indigenous folks and the connection to Halloween and capitalism and colonization. So that's my offer for you this evening as we embark on Halloween. Because today is Wednesday, October the 25th, and maybe not super Halloween related, but it's our 133rd event, and we're going to talk to JJ Hunt about the Day of the Dead. And I know that there's a Spanish interpretation of this. I'm not a Spanish speaking person, but JJ's going to come into the space and he's going to share with us some of the Spanish interpretations. So JJ, put me out of my misery so that I don't mispronounce things.
Yeah.
Welcome into the space, JJ.
Thank you very much, Amy. It's wonderful to be back. And you know, I'm going to do my best with my Spanish pronunciations.
You're way better than I am, though.
Mine are not perfect. But yeah, I'm in Mexico right now. I am in Oaxaca, Mexico, and I am exploring. I'm here through Day of the Dead, and I'm here for a couple of weeks after. And I am also a white Canadian of settler heritage. So all of the things I'm going to share tonight, all of these descriptions, all of the bits of history that I've been able to dig up are very much from an observational point of view. I'm not speaking from a place of personal heritage or subject expertise. I'm going to be speaking as a traveler, as someone who explores. So that's what I'm doing, and so very pleased to be with you here tonight, Amy.
I'm really excited to have you. I guess I started by saying there's some gremlins in the space tonight.
Yes.
So if we experience some gremlins with you joining us from, I mean, this is what happens when you're live on location, right?
That's right. Live on location. I
Live
am
on
in
location.
my Airbnb here in Oaxaca. And so I don't have as much control over my internet environment as I normally do. I've been told if I'm not as maybe if I don't speak with my hands as much, it's I won't use as much bandwidth. My hands use an awful lot of bandwidth, I think.
I do this. Yep,
So
I'm the same. I'm a hand talker. But you seem to be coming through nice and clear. So without like I don't
beautiful.
know, knocking on everything that's made out of wood, um, we'll just go with that. So you're in Oaxaca. Is this the first time that you've experienced Day of the Dead as a witness, a traveler in Mexico in general?
So I 4 years ago, 2019, my family and I were on a big, supposed to be a year-long adventure around the world. We made it halfway, and then the pandemic hit. but, but we did make it through Mexico. I mean, through Mexico. So this is such a massive country, and we had been our last stop in Mexico was going to be during Day of the Dead, and we planned our trip so that we would be in Mexico City for Day of the Dead, because we thought Mexico City, that's the capital, that's where the celebrations are going to be biggest, and they're going to be grand, and we knew there was a parade, and we thought, oh, that's what we're going to do. So we planned everything out, and then along our travels, as we went through Mexico, everyone we would meet would ask, oh, are you going to be here for Day of the Dead? And we would say, yes, yes. They'd say, where are you going to be? And we would very proudly say, Mexico City. And to a person, everyone said, oh, that's too bad. You really should have gone to Oaxaca. So this year, when I had the chance to come back to Mexico, I was very intentional about booking a ticket so that I could be here in Oaxaca for Day of the Dead, which is coming up in under a week's time.
Okay, so just so you're Toronto based. What
Yes.
was it like traveling to Oaxaca? I don't know where Oaxaca is in Mexico. I don't know how you
Yeah.
get there. Tell us a
So
bit about
Oaxaca is a state in southern Mexico. Oaxaca de Juarez is the capital city, or Oaxaca Ciudad. And to travel from Toronto, that meant stopping off somewhere in the States. I had to stop off in Dallas and change planes. There aren't any direct flights to Oaxaca City. The southern coast of Oaxaca is where you start getting into like primo surfing territory, like world-class surfing. So that's along the same coastline as Puerto Vallarta. So I'm a little bit north of there in the highlands. Oaxaca's up in the high plains, in the mountains, and Oaxaca's just an incredible place. It's got a little bit of everything. So we've got that coastline, the sandy beaches that I just talked about, the mountains, high plains, deep valleys, and with all of that different geography, it's a really biologically diverse area. It's a beautiful place, and in no small part because of the rugged terrain. A lot of indigenous communities in Oaxaca survived the colonial onslaught better than most. Zapotec and Mixtec peoples are the most prominent indigenous cultures in the region, but those are only 2 of 16 officially recognized indigenous groups that are still living in the region. And so this diversity of peoples has made the language, the literature, the art, the music scenes, the food incredibly vibrant. So yeah, the capital city where I am, Oaxaca City, was founded in 1532 near Zapotec and Mixtec cities, Monte Alban, and Mitla, and it's now a UNESCO heritage site with a population of just under 1 million people.
Wow.
Yeah,
I had no idea. I had no idea. And you
yeah.
haven't go ahead.
Sorry, Amy?
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, one of the things I love about Oaxaca is all of the like exploring opportunities. When I travel, yes, I like to go and do the official things, go to this specific tourist site or this specific building. But for me, it's mostly about just wandering around and exploring. And Oaxaca City has all kinds of places to explore. So, for example, because it was an important colonial city, there are lots of large religious and civic buildings that were constructed in those early days, like Oaxaca Cathedral, for example. I think we've got a photo of the Oaxaca Cathedral This is a very impressive building, built in the 1500s.
Yep.
And from the outside, it's a patchwork of gray stone blocks with hints of green and brown.
Are you asking us to bring up that photo now, JJ, or do you want to wait and we'll bring up that photo in a bit?
No, we can. Yeah, we can bring it up anytime. I can just talk over the photo. That's no problem. If Rick's got that, that would be perfect.
Sure. Yeah, we can jump in. We'll get Rick to bring up the photo of the Oaxaca Cathedral.
Oaxaca Cathedral, photo number 1. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Rick. Yeah, so this the cathedral, this is a photograph that I took last time I was in Oaxaca. It's kind of low to the ground looking up at the building. And there are a couple of sellers, people selling some things out front with little carts with umbrellas on them. And the building itself, yeah, a patchwork of stone blocks with hints of green and brown in them. And it's funny, parts of the building, like there are towers on the outside corners, and they look pretty utilitarian, very plain boxy towers. But then there are some columns right in the center of the facade where it's really ornate. The facade is delicately carved, statues and niches. There are lots of domed rooftops. So on the towers, there are domed rooftops. In the center of the building, there are domed rooftops, massive arched doorways. And it's a little bit eclectic, as are a lot of the old buildings around here. If you've had a building in active use for 500 years, there's going to be different stuff put on at different times, and restorations done at different times. Right now, I was just in the cathedral yesterday. There's a celebration going on. I didn't know it's not my faith, and I couldn't read the signs. I didn't quite understand what the celebration was. There are saints being celebrated constantly here, but inside it was all about cut flowers. The inside of the building, the inside of the cathedral, was just full of cut flowers. As soon as you walked in, you could smell it. You know, that very distinctive smell of going into a florist shop. It's not just the flowers; it's cut flowers. It was incredible, really like pungent, incredible smell. Yeah, and then, like I said,
JJ, you're getting gremlin-y.
So around there are lots of parks and plazas in Oaxaca. There's a lot of things that's done. Get the internet to calm down if I stand still.
Or maybe just try you're turning your video
plazas, on. In Oaxaca. I think Rick's got that for me to so I calm down a little bit from a bandwidth standpoint. Have you got me okay, Amy?
I think so. Yep. So you were just telling us about the smell of the flowers.
Yes. Yes. And so the other about Oaxaca is exploring the plazas and the gardens, because there's a lot of public living that's done in Oaxaca. And the places, the plazas. So these tend to be big open squares lined with old, uneven aiming stone, sometimes benches and flower beds, and some occasional statues, bands and dance groups. They rehearse. There are food carts there. Kids run around and play. When I was there was a salsa martial arts session. There were dog walkers who had all gathered their pets together. There's a huge bouncy castle, and there's lots of teenagers making out. Kissing and making out in the park is the activity if you are a young person in Oaxaca. So yeah, it's awesome.
I wonder if mono is the number one thing you get antibiotics for.
It could be. I don't know. Maybe tequila and mezcal takes care of that. I'm not sure. The other
Okay.
thing is there's a botanical garden in Oaxaca. I haven't been in yet, but it's supposed to be fantastic. Over 2 acres of agave and cacti and fruit trees, medicinal plants. I think we've got a photo of the cacti. I think that would be photo number 4. Rick, if you've got photo number 4, sorry to jump ahead just a bit.
Wow. That's not like any cacti that I've ever seen in like movies. So try and
No.
describe this to us.
Yeah, so you say cactus and you think like that cartoon cactus, right? With
Yeah.
like one central thing
Looks
and
like a
then like,
fork.
yeah, exactly, two
Yeah.
arms sticking up on the side. There are those kind of cacti, but then there are others like this, which is that this is madness. I mean, it's just a cacophony of cacti. So there are long, straight, like 20 or 30-foot tall poles of cactus, all dark green, shooting straight out as if in a bouquet. And then there are some that are flat, like paddles, like ping pong paddles, one attached to the other, attached to the other, attached to the other, in all kinds of directions. Some cacti have blade-like fronds. Some look like prehistoric, like these plants that are made of scales. I mean, they're just wild. And so I'm really looking forward to going into that botanical garden to check that out. Nothing, this is not like the cartoon cactus. This cactus that is depicted in this image here is probably as big as a small bungalow, like
Oh,
literally,
wow.
20 stories tall and probably at least that wide in every direction. Massive, massive.
It just looks like a tangled mess of textures to me.
Yeah, it really is. And I imagine if you fell into it, it would feel like a tangled mess of textures. It's,
Yeah. I
quite
mean,
spiky.
talk about needing tequila after that.
Yeah,
Uh,
seriously. And
and
then
agave.
that's right. You get,
Yeah.
and so it's all right there for you, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing, the markets. I love the markets here. There are a couple of really big markets in Oaxaca, vast open buildings, but you wouldn't know they're open because once you get in, they're just packed with like row after row of permanent stalls. Like it's a labyrinth of stalls in there. Fresh cheeses, raw meats, woven baskets full of grains and vibrant spices. I think we've got a couple of market pictures, Rick. Photo 2. And then photo 3.
Start with photo 2. Okay,
I'll
so
start with photo 2. I mean, just like anything you want can be procured at the market. Leather goods, metal goods. There are straw hat makers. The image up here we've got is a stall that sells spices and chilies. So it's basket after basket after basket of spices. And these are like laundry basket sized baskets. And then the whole back wall of the stall is lined with jars and packages and bins of different kinds of spices and packaged goods. And then there are colorful baskets that are hanging down from the ceiling as well. So you can like choose a basket or choose a bag and then fill up with any kind of chili you can imagine. And I think there's one other market picture there, Rick. There we go. So this is a close-up of some dried chilies, burlap sacks just filled with dried chilies. And these are great big. Each one of these chilies is as big as your finger, or some of them are as big as your palm, and they're dried and flat and in these amazing burlap sacks. And then once you've really got the burn on from all the chilies, then you need to go for an ice cream, a nieve. Nieve is pre-Columbian ice cream. It's actually more like sorbet, and it's been served for hundreds of years. Hundreds of years. Like I said, predates colonization. And there is this booth right in the middle of the market. Thank you. That picture is fantastic, Rick. There's a booth right in the middle of the market, and it's got walls lined with faded photos of local celebrities who eat there. There are these old dinged up stainless steel tabletops with wooden benches, and you get served your nieve in these 1950s stainless steel sundae cups like you would have found in the like soda shop. And so the image here is my two kids eating out of each other's dishes, of course, because you got to taste everyone's. My youngest has a sundae that is two different flavors, a chocolate, and then I think there was a vanilla beneath. And then my eldest has a just vibrant, bright green. Knowing them, it's probably lime, if I remember correctly. Yeah, these amazing flavors. I'm only here for a month. I will probably go to that Nieve booth 24 times in the month that I'm here.
And do you remember like how many flavors they have?
Yeah, there were all kinds. I think there were like 15 or 20 different kinds of flavors, and some were pretty typical, like the standard I would have expected, typical for my palate: the vanillas, the limes, the chocolates. And then things got a little bit crazy, because these are crazy to my palate, because just a different set of flavors that are available and that have people been digging into for hundreds of years. There were burnt milk. I remember being one. Burnt milk, really intriguing, deep and nutty flavor. It's so hard to describe flavor, but it tasted like burnt milk in the best possible way.
What was the most unusual flavor that you've tried?
So I can't remember if they had a chapulines flavor of nieves, but chapulines is like crickets, grasshoppers that you
fun.
Deep fry. And yeah, you soak them and they desiccate it, and they're booze food. I don't think they had a chapulines nieve. But when I go to the market next, Amy, I'll send you a text. I'll let you know.
Have you had the deep fried crickets?
I had a couple of them. Not my favorite, because I'm not a beer drinker. My wife's the beer drinker, and she said that was when they were perfect. You're sitting down, instead of having a bowl of peanuts by your side, you have a bowl of grasshoppers, and you just pop them one after the other. Said they were perfect like that. A little harder to eat when you don't have a beer to wash them down, I think.
Yeah, because I imagine that they're deep fried, obviously, but they sprinkle them with like seasoning salts and stuff on top, so you probably get them in different flavors and stuff.
Yeah, and really spicy. And they've been I can't remember the process, but it's like dried out, and then they're soaked at some point in a lime, like a lime reduction or something. I can't remember, but
technically they're like embalmed and fermented.
Yeah, that's right.
Essentially,
protein of the future.
Well, that's the thing about it. They say that there's enough insects on the planet to sustain us all for a long time.
That's right.
So instead of, the methane that comes off of a cow when we eat the beef, right?
You got it.
It might be the ticket to climate change. I don't know. But I digress.
We'll see what Chris has to say about that next week.
Yeah, that's right. I'll have to ask her if she's had the grasshopper. Chippolinas. I'm not sure if I'll remember that for next week. All right, good to know. They sell those in, I think I was in Texas of all places once.
Yeah.
Where I found them in kind of like a novelty shop.
Yeah.
But they have a lot of Spanish influence in some of those southern states, right?
Absolutely. And that's where a lot of we tend to get the novelty versions of these things, but it's not a novelty here. No. There are basket after basket of chapulines in the markets. And frankly, it's the same like Day of the Dead. When Day of the Dead crosses the border and spreads as it has, it often is a novelty. Whereas here it's a very important cultural celebration, and that's one of the main reasons I'm here right now. I really did time my visit so that I could be here for Day of the Dead.
And are you there with your family right now?
I am solo.
You're solo.
Solo for a month. Yeah, this is a bit of a it was my 50th birthday, and I thought I'm gonna take off, and I thought I'd come here and see, have a bit of time away, a little bit of time for introspection, but also a little bit of time to play with description and travel. And
Yeah.
so doing things like this and thinking about different ways to convey the visuals of a traveling life. I wanted to be here by myself so that I could
You're
play
focused.
in that realm a little bit. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm sure you're missing them, but I'm sure you're also appreciative of some time.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Ask me week 3 how I'm feeling. It might
That's
be a
true.
little different.
That's true. I get you. Okay. I mean, I want to go to Oaxaca because it
Oh, you
sounds
definitely do.
amazing. Yeah.
And you want to be here, if at all possible, for Day of the Dead. It's a multi-day celebration. Extends from like the night of officially, like from the night of the 31st through November 2nd.
Hmm.
But it goes well beyond that, depending on regional traditions. And Dia de Muertos or Dia de los Muertos originated in Mexico, but like I said, it's expanded to other parts of the Americas. And interesting, like you were talking about with the origins of Halloween,
Yeah.
the origins of Day of the Dead are actually deeply rooted in pre-Hispanic Aztec rituals. And my understanding is that the celebration as it now exists combines indigenous cultural traditions with Spanish colonial traditions. So it's a much like the Mexican people are like a melding of these cultures, the traditions are a melding of these cultures as well. And I think for some people, this is an indigenous celebration that's been appropriated by the dominant culture. But I
Right.
think for others, I think it is an actual blended tradition and has now a distinct set of traditions in its own right. So,
Just
yeah,
brought people together.
exactly.
Brought
So
communities
it's
together.
not for me to speak to how
Yeah.
folks feel about that, but but my understanding, it is a real, it is a blending of these traditions. And some of the images we're going to share tonight, especially in images of the parade that are coming up later, lots of opportunity to talk about that because, yeah, this blending is really quite interesting. My understanding of the basic idea behind Dia de Muertos is that on one night of the year, the door of the afterlife is opened, right? Just like you were saying in
Yeah.
the early early versions of Halloween, and I'm
Yeah.
sure Dia de Muertos had an influence on our
Mhm.
Halloween, because the tradition goes way back. So
Yeah.
one night of the year, the doors of the afterlife are opened, and the spirits of your ancestors and friends are allowed to travel back to this plane of existence for that one night. And so what people do is they make altars and they prepare specific foods and they offer gifts. And all of this is to entice their loved ones down for one great party.
Yeah.
And like I said, the tradition has grown, it's changed over time. There are now costumes and characters and puppetry and dancing and parades all associated with the holiday. And it's a little bit macabre, but it's mostly very joyous. It's very colorful, and it's really, really rich in cultural visuals. Have you ever celebrated Dia de Muertos before or been anywhere where it's celebrated, Amy?
No, I mean I've only sort of heard of it anecdotally and in some media things and so no, I've never been anywhere where it's live and happening.
Ah,
And I know some of the like the history that you just shared and I think it's really really rich, but I just have never had the opportunity to witness it.
yeah. Well, I mean, it is fascinating to be here and to get a deeper understanding. Shockingly, one of the one of pop cultures like the US and Canada's great pop culture touchstones for Day of the Dead is Disney's Coco. And as you said before, Disney isn't always known for its cultural sensitivity. And yet somehow
Hmm.
Coco actually does an excellent job of portraying Day of the Dead celebrations. And again, my understanding is that it is well liked here. It is done well enough that here it is highly regarded. That's my understanding. They
And
get the colors.
it may be because Disney had worked with people like
Yes.
people who were culturally related to the celebrations in order to bring that story to life.
I would think so. Certainly a lot of the voice talent they had is from the community.
Yeah.
And all of the visual clues would indicate that they were working with people who knew the holiday well.
Yeah.
They get the colors right, they get the textures right, they get the music, the traditions, their depiction of the people, the celebrations, all of that seems to me to be pretty accurate. If anyone hasn't seen it, it is available on Disney Plus with audio description. I've heard a little bit of the audio description. I've spoken to other people who have watched it with the AD, and they tell me that the AD is very good. So yeah, we're gonna play a couple of clips tonight, and I highly recommend checking it out. Well, actually, why don't we start with a clip right now? I'll do a little bit of setting up because unfortunately on YouTube the AD is not available. So
Yeah.
I will pre-describe the clips as best I can so that folks can follow along. So this is a clip from Coco where Abuela, grandma, is explaining Day of the Dead, supposedly to young Miguel, but really it's explaining to the audience what Day of the Dead is. So this clip features young Miguel, his grandmother, his abuela, and his very elderly great-grandmother. And they all enter the family's ofrenda room. We're going to talk about an ofrenda in just a minute. That's the altar. And this altar in this house has its own room off of the courtyard. And grandma explains why Day of the Dead is so important. The ofrenda room is a boxy adobe building with wooden windows. It's got a red clay tile floor, and it's outfitted with very simple wooden furniture. At the far end of the room is this huge family altar, the ofrenda. It's multiple tables lined with bright orange marigolds, family photos, lit candles, and lots of other offerings we're going to talk about in just a bit. Miguel, young boy with black hair, medium skin tone. Grandma is a stout woman in a blue dress, and she's got on a red and white checkered apron. She's got a silver streak in her dark hair, which is pulled back into a bun. She has a boxy face with a heavy jaw, medium skin tone. She's got some wrinkles. And then great grandma, that's Coco. She sits in a wicker wheelchair. She's got her white hair worn in 2 long braids and a traditional white dress with embroidered flowers along the neckline. And her face is heavily wrinkled. She's like an apple doll in her little wicker wheelchair. So Rick, if you've got that first clip from Coco lined up, this one might be a little bit quiet. So folks, if you've got your earphones in, that's great. And turn up your audio if you can.
Don't give me that look. Dia de los Muertos is the one night of the year our ancestors can come visit us. We've put their photos on the ofrenda so their spirits can cross over. That is very important. If we don't put them up, they can't come. We made all this food, set out the things they loved in life, mijo. All this work to bring the family together. I don't want you sneaking off to who knows where. Where are you going?
I thought we were done.
Ay, Dios mío. Being part of this family means being here for this family. I don't want to see you end up like
Mama Coco's papa?
Never mention that man. He's better off forgotten.
You're the one who... I was just... But I was...
Papa? Papa is home.
Mama, cálmese, cálmese.
Papa is coming home.
No, Mama. It's okay. I'm here.
Who are you?
Rest, Mama. I'm hard on you because I care, Miguel. Miguel?
And of course, Miguel has run away because you don't want to listen to your grandma for any longer than you have to. So, that's right.
How old do you think Miguel is supposed to be?
Oh, I think probably 9 or 10.
Okay.
Yeah, 9 or 10. Yeah, they run off those kids.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So the ofrendas really are visually one of the key pieces of the holiday. The ofrenda is the center. These are the altars that people create to honor and entice those who have passed. And there are private ofrendas that people make in their houses or their apartments. A lot of businesses will have an ofrenda, but they're also public things. So schools will have ofrenda, public squares will have giant ofrenda, like they become spectacles. So it ranges from deeply personal to like, honestly, right now here in Oaxaca, there are in the public squares, in the Zocalo, the main square, there are huge tents being set up right now, and platforms and risers where all sorts of, I don't even know what kind of ofrendas are going, but these are like, some of these are bigger than a truck. Some of them are as big as a house. Like, they go from very small and personal to really huge.
And how soon would somebody start to set up an ofrenda? Like,
all of the stores and the markets and everything are selling all of the things you would need to set them up now. So I think they're in the days leading up to the celebration. That's when people are gathering all of the things. So, you know, there are some important visual things like marigolds, for example. A lot of flowers are around a lot of ofrendas. My understanding is that the marigolds specifically are about the path that leads from the afterlife. You want that, though the orange petals of the marigolds will line the path, kind of like the yellow brick road. That lines the path for the afterlife. I think we've got, Rick, photo number 6, an ofrenda that's got a big marigold arch over it. This was a public ofrenda that we found in Mexico City in 2019. And yeah, big arch. This is a 6-foot tall marigold arch with a couple of like deep purple rings of flowers around it, and a couple of skeletons around, like standing tall. I think these are like 5-foot tall skeletons that are standing on either side. And then inside the arch are shelves, 1, 2, 3 or 4 shelves, each one filled with different things, photos and candles and knickknacks and whatever. The things that you put out on your ofrenda are specific to the person or people that you're trying to entice back from the afterlife. So you might put out their favorite drink, or you might cook some of their favorite food and put that out. But you can also go to the markets and get little tiny miniature versions of all sorts of things. So you can get like little tiny dollhouse clay plates of tiny clay chicken and rice dishes, or like literally the size of a quarter, the size of a loonie or toonie. And you lay all of these things out in the ofrenda, surrounded by these marigolds. I think the marigolds are actually important in Aztec culture as well, and I think that's probably one of those traditions that has been carried forward, you know, brought into it from the original Aztec traditions. Yeah, and often the large public ofrendas, like in an ofrenda around your home, you might take the petals or the flower heads and put them all around your tabletop, or maybe have a couple of bouquets of marigolds. But in public spaces, you might have like the whole facade of a building might be covered in marigolds, or the entire doorway of your establishment might be marigolds. Huge ofrendas. And in homes, obviously, you're trying to entice family members back from the dead. In public ofrendas, they can be a little bit more playful. So sometimes there are ofrendas to famous people who have passed, or there are conceptual ofrendas. We saw an ofrenda for the earth. You know, the planet is dying. Here's an ofrenda for the planet Earth. We've got another photo number 7, Rick. This is an ofrenda for someone's wiener dog that we saw in Mexico City. And so On the floor, directly at the bottom of the lower half of the picture, on the floor is a wiener dog that is made of sand. So it's like just like a picture drawn in dark brown sand he's got like a red neckerchief on. And then he's got, it's surrounded, like he's framed in with marigolds, and then there's a row of candles all around him, and then that's framed in marigolds. And then at the back of the ofrenda, which is sitting on like a whitewashed stone wall, there are rows of these tissue paper cutouts called papel picado. I'm going to talk about those in just a minute. And then there are little skull heads lining the back of the ofrenda, and 2 paper mache skeletons, but instead of being human skeletons, these are wiener dog skeletons. I mean, this is totally adorable. Yeah, so like I said, in public, kind of more spectacle style of ofrendas.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a blanket. This wiener dog. It looks like it's a blanket with a
It does.
wiener dog on it.
Yeah, it's that size, like a beach towel
like
with a picture
towel,
of a wiener dog on it. Yeah,
so
goofy.
Here's the question I have for you, especially in the public setting. I mean, obviously there's commodity here, there's capitalism here, there's all of those things. What happens with all of this stuff when the Day of the Dead is over?
Yeah. So that's very interesting. That's a very good question. I imagine some of this stuff is like, I don't know, do you have in your house the box of Christmas decorations that gets taken out? And
I mean, it's fine when it's in your home, but when it's a public display,
that
people are bringing offerings to,
I imagine there are elements of it that can be saved and reused. The flowers, if they're real flowers, they go bye-bye. Like they just fade away. A lot of the food gets consumed. So like you might have in your home, you might have things like sugar skulls, calaveras, or sometimes there are chocolate skulls, and those will be eaten. But like a lot of the big stuff, like you say, some of it just becomes garbage. A lot of it's paper mache. That tends to be a material that's used a lot. I imagine like smaller businesses that are doing their Dia de Muertos celebrations probably have somewhere, somewhere in their storage, they've got all of their stuff, and they bring it out and change it around a bit every year. But I mean, personally, I'm all about the food stuff. Let's put out the foods. There's another kind of food that often gets put out. It's a traditional bread called pan de muerto. We've got photo number 8. There you go, pan de muertos. So this is like a donut. It's like a big round bun, but it's sweet bun, and then crisscrossing the top of it are dough or strips of dough that are shaped like, frankly, they look like drumsticks, but they represent bones. So it's got crisscrossed bones on it, and then it's sprinkled with sugar. Oh god, they're so good. They're sweet buns about the size of a large hamburger bun. Really, really tasty. And those get put out, and then they get eaten at the end of the holiday. And then the other thing that used to be more biodegradable, Amy, but is no longer as biodegradable, is the papel picado. So these are like strings of paper decorations. Ofrendas, houses, businesses, streets, all get decorated with these tissue paper banners. So you take a string and you tie it up horizontally like a clothesline. Actually, we've got a photo of this, Rick. Number 9, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. Thin strips, thin strings tied horizontally like a clothesline, and down from those hang these rows of horizontal rectangles. And each one of those rectangles features a depiction of a different scene or character. Lots of skeletons and ofrendas and little Day of the Dead type celebrations, but they're punched out of the paper. So they're not drawn on. They're it's like a doily, but there's a picture inside. so traditionally, the artist would take a stack of tissue paper and punch or cut out the holes to create these designs and pictures.
Right.
Tissue paper isn't used as much these days. These days, they're mostly mass produced.
Yeah.
So like, that really cheap plastic, like if you get a tablecloth for a picnic at the dollar store,
Yeah.
like that kind of plastic, bright, vibrant colors. Like there are hot pink ones and blue ones and red ones and orange and green. Did you ever make those? Were you ever in a kindergarten class or a daycare that cut snowflakes out of folded paper?
Yep.
It's kind of like that, but it is so far beyond in terms of artistry.
Right.
That's a very simplified version of what these originally were. But like I said, now it's mostly mass produced. But they're everywhere. Like they're strung in these long, the photo that we have up right now are rows of these ones, like strung overhead on a street here in town. They're
Between
quite
buildings,
lovely.
right?
Yeah, like all the way across, and you
Yeah.
put huge blocks of them across. So for like a whole block long, every 2 or 3 feet, there's another one of these strings that goes directly across the street. And sometimes they do different color-coded things. So on one street, it'll be all purples and blacks and yellows, and then another street, it's much brighter pastel colors, pastel blues and greens and reds and whatever. Yeah. But then beautiful drawings, cacti, luchadors, churches. I mean, I say drawings, the images punched out of them. Lots of fantastic imagery in these papel picado.
I imagine at one point, before we had machines that die cut things and mass produce things, people were painstakingly like making these things in order to celebrate, loved ones that had passed, right?
Yeah, that's right. And it would have been an individual art, like an art or a craft, something that a tradesperson would do. And there are still, if you go into the markets, like if you go into any dollar store or, department store in Mexico, you can find the plastic version. If you go into the markets, you can still find a handful of people who have, I don't know, their hand, I'm sure they're mass produced, but they're at least the tissue paper.
Right.
And because of the way commerce works, and Christmas comes so soon after Halloween or Dia de Muertos, after Dia de Muertos, the stores start to carry Christmas versions. So there are little Santa Clauses and there are little Christmas trees, and so you can get these red and green Christmas colored papel picados and decorate your house for Christmas in the same style. It's a very, very Mexican way of decorating for Christmas.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty cool. There are also, so that's your ofrenda, right? So now you've got your ofrenda set up in your home, in your business. You've got papel picado, decorating your house, your streets. Then you get into these characters that have become an important part of the holiday, the Catrinas and Skeletons. And I don't know exactly how these characters, I have some idea of how these characters came into be, but I don't know exactly how far back the traditions go, that the skeleton is a representation of the your ancestors coming back. Have they always been considered skeletons coming back from the afterlife, or is that a more modern take? But there's now people very strongly associate those skeletons with Mexico in general. There are paintings on murals all over town with skeletons in them, and they're not just about Day of the Dead. That's just about it's a visual representation of Mexico and the style of the art here. And there's a very particular way that the returning dead are depicted as skeletons, right? They're drawn, they're painted, they're written about, and they're very specific. And people now dress up as skeletons, and they wear face paint or they put on masks. That's become a huge part of the modern celebration. I'm guessing that's a mashup between Halloween and Day of the Dead, where skeletons are Day of the Dead, dressing up is Halloween, and maybe that goes hand in hand. I know, strangely, James Bond had an influence on the phenomenon. We're going to come back to that later on. But if you are interested in dressing up as a Day of the Dead skeleton, you need to know a few things. First, you want black formal clothing. So think like late 19th century, early 20th century Spanish colonial styles. And then there are accents on those. If you're a dude with a suit or a tuxedo, top hat, you want some traditional flavor in that, right? So maybe a black vest and pants with white embroidery that's going to match the brim around your black sombrero. And then for women, you think like long corseted gowns with layered skirts, puffy shoulders, shawls, and again, often embroidery around the hems and necklines. And then you need your makeup done. Basic skull makeup. So the basic idea of skeleton makeup on the face, black and white makeup, is you've got to make it look like your fleshy face isn't fleshy. So all the fleshy parts have to look hollow, and that's where the black makeup comes in. So the eye sockets have to appear to be sunken. So all the way around, great big black eye sockets that makes your eyes look hollow. The tip of your nose, you feel the tip of your nose, it's really soft. That's cartilage. That's going to disappear with your flesh. So you got to black out the tip of your nose. Under your cheekbones, your cheeks have disappeared if you're a skeleton. So you put black under your cheekbones. And then you obviously aren't supposed to have lips if you're a skeleton. So you'll paint white all the way over your lips, and then draw a thin line in black with a couple of bone lines for the sockets where your teeth would have popped in. That's a very basic kind of cartoon version of skeleton makeup. If you want a realistic look, then you had some shading in there. Maybe you put in some fine details like thin black lines that look like the fine cracks in the bones. So that's your skeleton makeup. But then there are the Catrinas. So Catrinas are these female skeleton characters, and they're stunning. A lot of the if you're in the Halloween store and you're looking for makeup, there will often be these like female skeleton or Day of the Dead kits. They're like little stickers that you can put on your face, and they're from this makeup. They're trying to replicate this Catrina character. My understanding is that there was a tradition of writing poems and stories called literary calaveras, literary skulls. And these were like lighthearted stories dedicated to friends and family. And around 1910, there was an artist named Jose Guadalupe Posada, and he created a zinc etching of an elegant female skeleton to go with one of those poems that was being printed in the newspaper. And Rick, we've got a picture of this, photo number 10. This is a picture on yellowed newsprint of this skeleton, this black etching, a skeleton wearing a large floppy hat adorned with flowers and long drooping feathers. And the skeleton, which had like as an open mouth with big, teeth, no gums, has like these tassel-like decorations at her temples where barrettes would go if a skeleton had hair. And this was supposed to be a parody of an upper-class Mexican woman of the time. And this visual image going along with this, a popular poem in the newspaper, starts to get incorporated into the culture. And then in 1947, Diego Rivera painted this character into a mural that became very famous, and he gave her a name, Catrina, and she became the symbol very strongly associated with Day of the Dead. And there are now parades that are just for people dressed up as Catrina. In Mexico City, when we were there, there's the Day of the Dead parade, but there's also a Catrina parade where it's hundreds, thousands of people dressed as Catrinas. And so you can, in the street, there are makeup artists. You can do your own makeup, but you can also get makeup artists to do your makeup professionally. And so when we were in Mexico City, every member of our family sat down and got their makeup done. And we've got a photo of my lovely lady Lois getting her Catrina makeup on. So start with the basic idea of the skull makeup, as I already described it, but now we're going to add color. That's a big part of the Catrinas, is color. So for this picture of Lois, this is a close-up. Lois is on our right. She's seated, neck extended, chin raised, and we are kind of looking down at her face. The makeup artist is standing on our left, leaning in to apply makeup with a long artist brush. And Lois already has the white face paint on, and she's got the thin black line along the mouth with the teeth sockets put in, and she's got some black accents along the jawline. But now it's all about the neon pink coloring in a very traditional Catrina pattern. So in a traditional pattern, there are often, again, the eye sockets color. So for Lois, in this picture, Lois has these like neon pink eye sockets. And then there are often rings of small flower petals that are all around the outsides of the eye sockets. And that's where you can find little jewels, or you can bedazzle your, you can buy kits with the little sticker jewels that you can put along there as well. Then there are flowers that kind of encircle the face. So flowers all around the chin, up along the sides of the face and across the forehead. Really pretty, very delicate in pinks and purples and blues. Yeah, and then often a Catrina, if you're not wearing the big floppy hat, will wear a headband that is lined with flowers, and then maybe more colonial clothing, like I already talked about. Yeah, just beautiful images.
How long did it take for Lois to have her face painted?
It was like 20 minutes a person. The makeup artist was serious, and before you sat down, she had a little book that you could flip through and choose color patterns and whatnot, and we each chose one. It was about 20 minutes for every member of the family except me. I was only 10 minutes because half of my face is beard.
Yeah. And then I suppose at the end of the day, you feel awful taking it off.
We truly did. It was because it's
art.
Artful. This is, it is beautiful. I overheard some guys on a bus that I was taking the other day. They were saying that they were in last year. Everyone was talking about, hey, you've been to Day of the Dead before? And this one group of guys was like, yeah, well, last year we were at a resort, and we were going to go into town in I can't remember where they said they were, somewhere in the Mexican Riviera. And so at the resort, they paid an exorbitant amount of money to get their faces done. And then they went into town, and they were the only ones who had their face painted. Oh. They felt like a bunch of doofuses. But that's not the way it is in Mexico City. In Mexico City, there are hundreds of Catrinas out for this parade, thousands, truly. Women dressed as Catrinas, but also some men who were dressed to accompany them. This was a more low-key affair than the official parade. Some folks carrying candles. Some people had worked out little dance routines, and someone would bring a speaker, and they play the music and everyone does the dance routine. I've actually got a clip here from our trip in 2019. This was filmed at night on a cell phone, so not the greatest image quality. And in this clip, dozens of men and women in full costumes and with skeleton and Catrina makeup on, some of them wearing black clothing with pink and white accents and frills, some of them wearing more colorful skirts, white blouses, red neckerchiefs on the men, crinoline dresses with colorful lacy trim around the hems, waists, and necklines on the women. And in this clip, they all dance in unison, spinning and holding their battery-powered candles, because real candles go out when you spin and twirl. So, Rick, if we can play this quick clip from Mexico City Catrina Parade 2019.
They sure sound like they're having a good time. As you said, it's a joyous occasion. And what I like about this is that it's a parade at night.
Yeah, a night parade. That's it. A lot of this stuff, like we have this such a strange association with death. Our relationship with death in Canada and in the US is it's truly morbid. This
Yeah.
parade that's celebratory, these celebrations are actually, in my mind, far less morbid. They're joyful, and it's a party, it's a celebration. Looking at that clip again, I was reminded that this was taken from one side of the parade route across the street where all the dancers are to the other side of the parade route, and the crowd on either side of the street was like 8 or 9 people deep, packing a huge stretch of road, like a block after block after block. And this is the unofficial parade. This isn't the big parade. This is just a little one. It's joyful, it's singing, it's dancing, it is much more celebratory than I think a lot of our notions of Day of the Dead are.
You say it that way and it sounds like it's a zombie movie. In fact, I think there might have been a zombie movie called Day of the Dead. Just saying. Maybe. Maybe. Okay, where are we going next, JJ?
The cemetery. I mean, even though we're talking about how it's a celebration, I'm being told my internet connection is not steady. Still got me?
I gotcha. Yeah. Oh, maybe I don't gotcha. No, maybe I don't gotcha. Let's give JJ a moment here.
There are like pride and yol.
JJ, I think I have to get you to repeat some of that because you are.
No problem.
Yeah, try it again.
Okay, did I come back, or do I need to log off and log on again?
I've got you pretty strong right now. Let's give it a try.
All right, I'm back.
I think so.
Okay, gremlin and I don't know. Looks like I might have logged. Looks like I'm out again.
Yeah, you're in and out.
Okay, I'm going to try quickly logging off and logging back on. My apologies, everyone.
All right, friends, we're going to give JJ a moment to try logging back in, out and in. This is live from Oaxaca, Mexico. So the Wi-Fi is a little, well, giving him a little bit of trouble. So we'll just hang out together. My virtual background is a Dia de los Muertos photo. I think it's a photo, and it's got an orange skull at the top, and then it's decorated with a bunch of brightly colored flowers and some birds, and it's really very, very colorful. It reminds me a little bit of like a tapestry that somebody would embroider almost. I don't think it's an embroider, but it kind of reminds me of one of those things that you would embroider and sort of hang on your wall. So it's got a blue background and some pops of yellows and oranges and really bright, vibrant colors. So if anybody was curious about what was behind, I moved my head out of the way, but if anybody was curious about what was my virtual background to celebrate Dia de los Muertos, that is what my virtual background looks like.
Thank you, Amy. I'm back. I can hear you clearly. Can you hear me?
I've got you coming in pretty clear.
Perfecto. Let's hope this lasts. My apologies, everyone. That's how things go. Yes. So we were about to head to the cemetery, right?
All right.
Okay. Yes, my understanding is that Day of the Dead celebrations go all the way through the night in some cemeteries in Mexico. I think that some folks believe that the grave must be attended all night in case the occupant accepts your invitation to return. Now, this is one part of the celebration that I have not taken part in myself. there are tour groups that go to cemeteries, but we decided when we were in Mexico City that just felt a little too intrusive to do without an invitation. These are families gathering. It is like having a Thanksgiving dinner in a local park. It's a private celebration. This is a private moment. And we wouldn't go into someone's house and sit down around their family ofrenda. So it didn't seem like it was appropriate to go into the cemeteries and gawk.
And I guess it would have been different if there was like a celebrity figure buried in a cemetery, a public figure, right?
That's a great point. Yeah, if it's like the public ofrendas, but in a cemetery, absolutely, that seems to make sense. But I think that my understanding is that it's in the cemeteries. That's where you'll find families. If I was invited, I would certainly go. But I don't think I'm going to go without an invitation. So I did some research on this instead. My understanding is headstones, tombs, family crypts will get decorated. Sometimes the entire graveyard will get decorated. I've seen photos that show graveyards at night lit with row after row of candles, thick pillar candles resting on the ground, short stubs in small glass cups marking the edges of the grave site. And then again, these blankets of orange marigolds, which glow like the last light of sunset with all that candlelight all around it. And then lots of skulls, large white skulls painted with those vibrant colors that we talked about to match the spirits of the dead, and people who are like, who are gathered around, tidying up the grave sites, sharing food, sharing stories. I think, strangely, this might be another moment to bring Disney back into the picture. Another clip from Coco. We've got a clip of Miguel in the cemetery. I don't want to give any spoilers for the movie because it is a good movie worth watching if you're interested in Day of the Dead. But to explain the clip a little bit, to give people a bit of an understanding of where this clip takes place and what's going on. In this scene, Miguel has had a strange supernatural experience, and he is hiding in the cemetery where a lot of families are gathered. They are praying and at their decorated gravestones. And yeah, somehow Miguel has this strange supernatural experience, and he can see the visiting dead, these glowing orange skeletons and these Catrina-like characters. Not only that, he can see them and they can see him, but none of the living can see him anymore. None of the living people can see Miguel, only the dead. And, so these dead have returned for their night of celebrations. They collect food that are brought by their relatives. They start to dance. They admire their grandkids, but only Miguel and his dog can see them. So Miguel's terrified. He tries to run. He bumps into a skeleton and he turns him into a pile of glowing orange bones. Of course, the skeleton rebuilds himself. And then lots of other skeletons begin to arrive on the scene. They recognize him, he recognizes them, and based on their clothing and body shapes, he recognizes them as people from his family, because all of these pictures of his family members have been placed on his family ofrenda. So that is the clip from Coco. Take it away, Rick.
Look how big she's getting.
Dante? You can see me? Wait, what's going on? Dante! Dante! I'm sorry.
Miguel?
Miguel?
You're here. Here. And you can see us?
Remind me how I know you? We're your family, mijo. Tía Rosita? Sí. Papa Julio?
Hola.
Tía Victoria?
He doesn't seem entirely dead.
He's not quite alive either.
We need Mama Imelda. She'll know how to fix this. Oh, yeah.
It's Mama Imelda. She couldn't cross over. She's stuck.
On the other side.
Tío Oscar? Tío Felipe?
Oh, hey, Miguel.
I have a feeling this has something to do with you.
But if Mama Imelda can't come to us...
Then we are going to her.
Oh.
Vámonos.
Ooh, now I gotta watch this movie.
It's pretty good, Amy. It's
Might
pretty
be,
good.
might be on my watch list this week. JJ, why don't you try just turning on your camera for a moment so we can at least spotlight your square?
Perfect.
Right now we just got me big, and then if you have to turn your camera off again, you can. But
Okay.
I get tired of just looking at me. So I'm looking at a big square. At least I'm a little square this way.
I'll stay on for a moment, and then
Yeah.
yeah, you can always downgrade me back to just my name again if I start to glitch out.
Yeah. But it's nice to see your face.
Lovely. So the one thing we haven't talked about is the great big Day of the Dead parade in Mexico City, which was one of the reasons that we went to Mexico City, was because we'd heard about this amazing parade.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we come back to James Bond. So in 2015, there's a new James Bond movie came out called Spectre. And the opening scene was this really cool long take scene that took place in Mexico City. It was one long action shot that took place during a Day of the Dead parade. And there were people in costumes, men in black suits adorned with white skeleton bones, women dressed as Catrinas in beautiful gowns, corseted cleavage, choker necklaces. There were these marionette puppets, wheeled floats of giant skeletons in top hats, drumming bands, and all of this was surrounded by Mexico City's like really beautiful, worn, old, faded colonial architecture. It was just visually really stunning. The music was fantastic and people loved it. So everyone started booking tickets to go to Mexico City for the next Day of the Dead parade. There was only one problem. The parade didn't exist. The filmmakers made the whole thing up for the movie. It was just a set piece. But all of these real life tourists started booking tickets to come to Mexico City. And so whoever was in charge of the Mexico City tourism, you know, they were no fool. They decided to actually start a real parade based on the movie. And they called up the same local artists who had been hired to help create the prop costumes and the floats for the Bond movie parade. And they said, you happen to have any of those kicking around? And they made a parade based on the movie. It was quite stunning. So yeah, so the real life Dia de Muertos inspired the Bond creative team to invent the parade. And then that scene inspired Mexico City to create the actual parade. In the first year that they put the real parade on, in 2016, 250,000 people showed up in the first year. This is how big Mexico City is. By 2019, when we were there, only 3 years later, the parade route had 2 to 3 million people lined up at it.
Wow.
Enormous. And from a tonal standpoint, the parade is kind of like a corporate Santa Claus parade, more so than like a gritty, sexy, like not quite like the Bond movie. They use a lot of the same images, a lot of the same floats, but yeah, it's corporate. It's glitzy. It's got like a family-friendly Santa Claus parade thing. And like we were talking about earlier with the roots of the celebration being in you know, Aztec culture and all the different indigenous groups that have elements of Day of the Dead, like elements from their cultural celebrations that have made their way into Day of the Dead celebrations. A lot of the parade groups were representatives of these traditions, these specific pre-Hispanic cultures in the different regions of Mexico. I don't have enough cultural knowledge to know exactly how those indigenous groups would feel about these images, these costumes, or these traditional clothes and traditional costumes being turned into like parade versions, Disneyfied versions. They were specific to my eye, like different cultural groups had, like they were clear and specific, but it was also very clearly commercialized. So we got a photo right here, photo number 13, Rick, is an example. There was a whole group of these characters. So this is the start of the parade, the start of this one group, and it's a float, and it's a giant float, probably 30 feet tall, and it's looks like a seated deity. That's a skeleton, long tongue sticking out, head feathered dress, or a feathered headdress, I should say, big, wide open mouth. And when I first saw this, part of me immediately cringed, because I have an understanding of when you do and when you do not use a feathered headdress as a specific example. But it's entirely possible that this float was made by this community, or made with some representation from this community. I honestly don't know. Another group, Rick, photo number 14, if you've got it. This is a character who's come straight up toward us, I was taking pictures from the side of the parade route. And this is a character wearing ribbons of color, orange, blues, greens, all the different colors in this like a cloak of ribbons, and then a giant skull head that's elongated with a lot of that kind of makeup that I was talking about before. And then like a halo of orange marigolds with spikes, long purple spikes. And again, it's the specificity of this that I think clearly drawing on something, but also this is like a plastic mask, and this is part of a big city parade. So where it is like appropriate representation and where it is not, that line, I honestly don't know.
It's an interesting conversation, right, around any holiday that we celebrate. I mean, if you look at Christian holiday like Christmas, that you're right, like
Yeah.
where those boundaries are, and how, those of us who are asking these questions are wondering about those boundaries, and
That's
where
right.
those lines are, and how we navigate those things. Because if you walk into any culture that's not yours, even cultures that are, I mean, I don't know that I would be able to. I was raised in a Catholic church. That doesn't mean I identify as a Catholic, but I don't know that I remember the Catholic scripture well enough to know what, you know what I mean? Like, what is,
Oh, totally.
so
100%. And like you say, like even in a Canadian context, the relationship between settlers and Indigenous peoples, I'm starting to learn, and I have some understanding of that relationship. I come down to Mexico, and that's an entirely different relationship. The Indigenous relationship to the colonial relationship here is entirely different. So I don't have enough cultural information. I can tell you that group after group after group went by in this parade with different sets of Indigenous costumes, different sets of, and each one was started with a big float, like we saw earlier, with the name across the bottom of the Indigenous group. So there is, there's some understanding. It's being worked through one way or the other.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention Alebrije. Have you ever heard of Alebrije before, Amy?
No.
So these are really cool. These are wild, brightly colored spirit creatures that are a mashup of different animals. So you might have like a neon pink leopard mixed with a butterfly wings that's got like a snake's tongue, or maybe there's a bull that's got zebra stripes and neon colors with purple octopus tentacles and dragon wings. These are, they're wild and glorious, and they're traditionally created by artisans in Oaxaca, often carved out of wood or built out of paper mache and then painted in these vibrant colors. And in the parade, they kind of turn these alebrije into floats. So we've got another photo, 15. And this is an alebrije of it's like a dog animal, but it's the entire animal is blues and purples and neon pinks and swirls. And the animal is kind of like a marionette. The dog is a marionette on a really long pole. So the dog is kind of free floating with this pole connected to its back. And that pole stretches back to a little wagon. I mean, I say a little wagon, it's a flatbed about the size of a car. And there are several handlers on it that can move this long pole so that the dog creature, this dog alebrije, can swing from side to side, from one side of the street to the other, and its legs can move like it's running. Yeah, all kinds of different versions of these alebrije as floats, as costumes. I actually saw, I went to Lucha Libre, Mexican wrestling, and I saw a wrestler whose name was the alebrije. And he's like this big, beefy Mexican wrestler in a neon pink unitard with tiny butterfly wings. I mean, I didn't know what to make of that. Speaking of,
like, just how big is this dog?
So this dog, there are some handlers, some people standing beside it, and the people are as long as the legs. So each leg looks like it's about 6 feet tall. So the whole dog itself is probably, the body's probably 10 feet long, and then the head's probably another 8. The neck and head probably another 8 feet. And could swing all the way on this pole, could swing all the way from side to side.
So it's made of lightweight material then?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember this one, probably like a lightweight wood as part of the frame, and then paper mache. Paper mache or versions of paper mache are used in lots of different crafts and for Day of the Dead. Amazing floats. So like speaking of lucha, I saw a wrestling ring on wheels as part, that was a float. So like a bunch of wrestlers pushing a ring on wheels down the street. And every once in a while, they would just stop it, lock the wheels, and then these wrestlers in their full leotards and wrestling masks would jump into the ring, perform some acrobatic wrestling move, or then they would jump out of the ring and come into the stands and grab a fan in the headlock, and then they unlock the wheels and they push the thing back along. I also saw there was a float of Frida Kahlo lying dead in her bed, and we've actually got an image of this. Yeah, thank you, Rick. So this is a huge float, like as big as a bus, and it's a single bed, like a 4-post bed with big wooden carved posts at the ends and a wooden headboard. And these posts have got to be 20 feet tall, and the beds have got to be at least 40 feet long, and the entire bed is filled with Frida Kahlo lying on her back, the green and gold skirt, hands, kind of draped across her stomach, staring straight up at the sky. I can't remember. I was looking at the image trying to think, like, how is this moving? It looks like a self-driving bed driving straight down the middle of the street of this parade route. Yeah, amazing. The other thing to note about the image, the photo that I snapped from the side of the parade, there's a garbage collector, like a parade, someone sweeping up the garbage, pushing a barrel on a dolly, and he's just a garbage guy in the parade, but he's wearing a full skeleton costume, top hat, face paint, the whole thing. Yeah.
So even the parade workers are all dressed up.
Even those guys are dressed up. Now, do you know those like famous inflatable cartoon characters that float down the parade route in the Macy's parade?
I remember those. Yeah. Well, I you know what, my iconic imagery of those is from the Michael Keaton Batman movie.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. They had some of those in this parade too. Yeah. They had one of a skeleton, a giant skeleton with monarch butterfly wings that floats down the parade route, attached to cables that are held by a team of people in skull makeup marching down the street. We've got a video. The soundtrack's not, amazing, just a lot of oohs and ahs, but it's only about 20 seconds long if we want to play that, Rick. There we go. Thank you. There we go. Yeah, so it was just like a wild, incredible, massive. I think it was 3 hours long. And if the Catrina parade had, 8 people deep on either side of the parade route, this was 20 people deep on either side of the parade route. And it went on for miles. 2 to 3 million people at this parade. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah, that's hours. I mean, when we go to the Pride Parade here in Vancouver, it's 3 hours, and I'm exhausted after that. So I can't even imagine, a celebration that goes on for as many days as you talked about it going on for days and days and days.
Yeah, yeah, and well into the night or overnight as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's yeah, I don't think not going to be getting a lot of sleep for the next few nights here in Oaxaca.
You have way more stamina than I do, JJ. Maybe I take it back. Maybe I can't visit Oaxaca because I just don't have the energy.
Yeah, you got to be a spry 50-year-old like me to.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
This body is like chronologically and lived experience, two very different ages. This body, but I can enjoy Day of the Dead through Coco.
That's right. That's right. Coco is a great way to to dive into it. Absolutely.
So, what are you looking forward to most?
Oh, honestly, right now, because I'm a little hungry, the food. There's some amazing food. That nieve, that pre-Hispanic ice cream, the pan de muertos, the sugar skulls, all of those things. But there was some flan that we found. Apparently, flan is a dessert that's often served Day of the Dead. Are you a flan eater? Have you had this custard treat before?
I mean, I've had several types of flans, yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm not trying this particular one.
Well, this is, I mean, the flan that we had at the last Day of the Dead celebration, golden yellow semi-solid custard with caramel sauce. Rick, I think we've got a photo number 19. Oh, this is like a huge tray of these, the golden kind of tops that are a little bit burned sugar on the top, and then golden caramel pouring over the edges.
They're using a torch on the top of that, right?
Yeah, a little tiny cooking torch. My
Yeah.
youngest is a baker. He's got one of those. Breaks it out for the creme. What is it? Creme caramel. Creme brulees. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, and the street vendors have trays after trays of these things outdoors. Hard to eat with your skeleton makeup on, but you get by. And of course, tamales eaten throughout the year, candied pumpkin, wedges of pumpkin boiled in sugar syrup and served with cinnamon and orange juice.
Oh my
And then there was one treat. I don't know if this is like an official Day of the Dead treat or if it's a parade route thing, but this was a crazy, like savory treat that we got at the last Day of the Dead parade. I'm really hoping I can find it again because it was so wild and wonderful. Rick, I think we got one final photo, number 20. This is my lady love Lois, who's got pigtails, glasses, and a great big smile on her face because she is holding up a peeled field cucumber that's cut in half with all the seeds removed in the middle, and it's put on a stick. So it resembles a tall, narrow, straight-sided champagne glass. And then they take this peeled cucumber, they rub the outside with lime, they roll it in chili powder, fill the inside with roasted peanuts, and then drizzle Valentina chili sauce all down the outside. So you're eating a peeled, spicy, limey cucumber with roasted peanuts and chili sauce. I don't know who came up with this. Some crazy mad scientist came up with this, and I've only ever had it at this one parade. I'm hoping I'm gonna comb Oaxaca trying to find one of these cucumber treats again.
And what did you say it was called?
I have no idea.
Oh,
I've looked it up and I haven't been able to find the name of it. If anyone on the call has heard of this before, I would love to get a name for it. We called it the cucumber thing because we had no other name for it. Like a champagne glass made of cucumber filled with peanuts and drizzled in like chili and chili sauce. Like, oh my goodness. Madness. Wow. Wonderful.
I'm trying to get a real close-up of that because it's not like any color of a
Yeah.
like I wouldn't even have known unless you told me.
Yeah, it's a very, so it's the peeled cucumber, so it's got a pale green color, but then rubbed in lime and rolled in powdered chili. So it's kind
Right.
of got a granule, grainy kind of outside. And then it's cut with a zigzag cut at the top and hollowed out. So you can, in this picture, you can just see the pile of peanuts poking out of the top. And then the Valentina chili sauce, which is kind of like Mexican ketchup, really. It's on everything. It's poured over the peanuts and dripping down the outside of this cucumber on a stick. Yeah, being held by a very happy, lovely Lois.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, I should also mention in the background of this picture, because this is taken in the middle of the crowds for the Day of the Dead parade, there's a ladder, there's a small step ladder that someone has brought because 20 people deep, it's pretty hard to see over the crowd. So someone brought a step ladder that they could climb onto to watch the parade over the crowd.
So much for bringing like your chair to sit in, right?
Yeah, that's right. Or like the little blanket at the side of the Santa Claus parade. Forget about it. You need a step ladder to see over the 2 million people in front of you.
The next thing people will bring is like one of those high hides. Like when you go
yeah,
have like a platform.
Get a couple of drones to lift you up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. So that's my understanding of Day of the Dead, and what I'm hoping to, the things I'm hoping to see. I'm really curious about others on the call, if there are others on the call who celebrate or have celebrated Day of the Dead before, because it is relatively new to me. I've celebrated a few times, but I'm always interested in hearing others' experiences, personal experiences with such things.
I don't know. Anybody want to offer? Has anybody celebrated Day of the Dead or been in places where they've been caught up in the action and witnessed it? I'm certainly intrigued. And I don't know anybody in my own personal circles, JJ, who has experienced this. No. Again, I've only really ever met or experienced it through like media.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can have a Coco watch party and you turn on the AD and everyone can hang out and experience Dia de Muertos for the first time, strangely through Walt Disney. I mean, it's one of the only times I would ever say, hey, everyone, let's gather around and watch Disney, for a cultural learning.
For cultural learning. Yeah. Well, this has been some pretty interesting cultural learning, albeit through, the lens of a witness. But that's okay.
And the gremlins didn't kick me off too many times, so.
No, not too bad. Not too bad. Hey, look, we no, we don't. I thought we had a hand. I was lying to myself. No, we do have a hand. So we do. It's Carrie.
Hey, Carrie.
Carrie joining us in this space. Hey, Carrie. Give Carrie a moment. Haven't had Carrie in the space in a while.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got
Hey, Carrie, how's it going?
Pretty good, yeah. Glad to be back for these. I'm glad for this one tonight, before Halloween here on Tuesday and before the celebration. So thanks for bringing this to us, JJ. I heard you were in Mexico there. I don't have any personal experience with the actual holiday, unfortunately. I just wanted to say again that I appreciated learning more about it because I was in Mexico in 2017 and I did the same stopover you did there to get there.
Mm.
But I wasn't in Oaxaca. I was in a very artsy city called San Miguel de Allende for a writing workshop. And that week we visited this expat who lived there at the time. He had a property with, he was an artist and an artisan. And at his place there, I bought a bracelet that he made, and it had a bunch of different beads on it, and one of them was this tiny little skull. So I always like to hold that bracelet, and it reminds me of that trip because I went on my own, and it was a big deal for me at the time. But yeah, I just find it fascinating because learning about different holidays like Halloween and like this one, and hearing them from different cultural points of view, I find this fascinating, and I just wanted to say thanks for bringing this to us.
Awesome. Thanks, Carrie.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment. I find it fascinating. Thanks for sharing that, Carrie. Megan's got a hand.
Yes, that was really cool. Can the Day of the Dead also be celebrated in Spain and Brazil? I know in America, like Brazil and Spain and Argentina, but could there also be celebrated in um in Canada and United States? Because there's a lot of Mexican people that live there, that moved there,
Yeah. I think it is. I think it is celebrated. I mean, I think it's celebrated in a couple of different ways. Like, first of all, it's just some of the traditions get blended in, get moved into other celebrations, like Halloween. You'll see a lot of these costumes or inflatables. You can go to Home Depot and buy Day of the Dead style inflatables to put in front of your house or decorations. So it gets incorporated into lots of other traditions. But then you're right, like there's folks from Mexico, folks of Mexican heritage all around the world, and so then the holiday itself gets moved around the world, and so I think I've got friends in Toronto, Mexican Canadian friends who celebrate Day of the Dead in their household for sure. And also Halloween does get celebrated here in a funny way, these traditions cross over. When we were in Mexico City, we were there for Halloween and Day of the Dead, and we got invited to go trick-or-treating because we were traveling with our kids. And the kids go as a group, a massive group, from door to door, and they chant "Quiero Halloween, Quiero Halloween," which is like, give me Halloween, give me Halloween. And like that's how they like ask for candy. So these traditions do overlap. The more global our world becomes, the more our traditions influence each other, for sure.
And could it also remind me, because I actually did see a Halloween parade in New York City, actually.
Oh,
and seriously, I'm amazed at how I don't know why we don't have Halloween parades in Kelowna or in Canada, like, or do we?
It's a good question.
One. Yeah.
And also, when you were in Dallas, Texas, going from Toronto to Dallas, Texas, and Dallas, Texas to Mexico, was it really windy in Dallas, Texas? Because Texas can be known for its wind, right?
Well, the plane landed all right. That was my only concern.
That's a good thing.
it wasn't too windy for the plane, so it was okay by me.
It kind of also remind me of, for the Day of the Dead, kind of remind me of Samhain, because we also worship our ancestors as well, and we, it's very, very, it's a bit, it's similar, but not as not as much. It's a bit more deeper, more solemn. But this one is more like more joyful, you're celebrating it,
It sounds like you don't need to be, I mean, we're so programmed for things like Halloween or like the supernatural, right, to be afraid of the ghost world,
no,
haunted by ghosts. And I don't know, I feel like I would want my ancestors to come back, and
me too,
I feel to be afraid of.
No, come on, they're ancestors, our grandma, my grandpa, my friend, my ex-boyfriend, you know what I mean?
Yeah, some kind of comforting in that. I will say too, just like as an aside, I have never found cemeteries to be a creepy place. I've never found cemeteries to be like a comforting place of solitude. I don't know why. But some people like think cemeteries are creepy, and I've never. As a friend of mine lives like on like her backyard is a cemetery. She's like, it's so creepy, and I'm like, actually, I think that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
It's quiet.
That's right. The most treed place in my neighborhood in Toronto is the local cemetery. It's the greenest park we've got.
Thanks for your thoughts and comments, Megan. We got a hand from Nancy, and then on deck is somebody with a phone number that I don't know their name. So, but we'll go for Nancy first, and then our mystery caller next. Give Nancy a moment to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we gotcha.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Thank you. Do you wear a costume?
Good question. So I did that makeup the last time. I'm not sure I'm going to do the makeup again this time. But I'm going to see what the vibe is over the next couple of days, because I'm all in. I want to blend in.
Yeah.
So I don't know. My hair's looking pretty gray, pretty silver and shaggy right now. So I could probably do a good skeleton.
You're not considering shaving the beard off there, JJ?
Oh my goodness, no. This thing's been with me for 30 years.
No, really?
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean, you just volunteered. You were 50. You've had that beard since you were 20.
I've had this beard since I was 20. My wife has never seen me without a beard.
Wow.
I'm thinking of coming down to Mexico. My girlfriend, the whole family lives there, and they always said come in this next in Halloween time. But the thing is, where's the best time to go? Because I heard it's a week long too, and I want to celebrate, but I don't. They told me I had to bring a costume, so I'm thinking when we were in Lahaina last year this time, the whole Lahaina was all decked. Oh my God, it was unbelievable how they decorated everything for Halloween, and it was different because we're in Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
And it's like wow, like and then like when with the when they do the Christmas parade, they do a parade once a year in November. December the 1st. It goes or 2nd. It goes all the way down Victoria. It goes miles and miles. It's a nighttime parade. It's awesome, but we do not do a parade for Halloween.
Mm.
And this is all people that volunteer just to make the oh my God, it's beautiful. But like I said, I'd like to go down to Mexico and just to party with everyone and eat their food.
I highly recommend it. Yeah, just come with an empty stomach, because there's a lot.
That's what I told. Or don't bring anything back. Just leave it behind.
That's right.
Well, thank you for sharing this. This is awesome.
Thanks, Nancy.
All right, and we got a hand from our mystery caller. I'm so excited to see who this is. I hope you know who you are. Calling in a touch tone phone. I think *6 should unmute you.
I'm sorry about that. Is that me?
Yeah.
It's Ken in Toronto. Thank you very much for giving us the experience of standing where you are, because it's just, it's one of those experiences that you read about and you hear about, but it's something completely different to witness it from the perspective of someone actually standing in that place. Clearly, it's going to feel sacred. I'm curious if you can feel the age, ancientness of what both the celebration and the space that it's celebrated in, and all of these little pieces come together for the people who live there. Can you feel that you're standing in a place that's beyond time a little bit, as it were?
Yeah, great question. So in a previous trip, I visited Monte Alban, what is now a ruin nearby, the Aztec city that's nearby, and one of the reasons that this colonial city was built here is because it was close to the existing big population that was already here in Monte Alban, and a lot of the colonial buildings, this is horrendous, but a lot of the colonial buildings are built with the stone that was taken from existing structures, existing Aztec structures, existing Mixtec structures. They tore those down and rebuilt. And yeah, there is an ancient quality to a lot of these buildings, a lot of these streets. And then with the festival happening at the same time that you're here, that is specifically about reaching back and celebrating and meeting and being visited by those who have passed. I think if you are inclined to tap into that, I think it's there for you. I think if you're inclined to feel that connection or to seek it out, I think it's I feel like it's there, it's waiting for you for sure. Great question.
To be open to the connection, if it is.
Yeah, I
If
think
it is
so.
something that resonates.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are someone who wants to come and eat tacos and go to live venues and see music and go to the museums, there's lots of that to do here too. You could probably spend your entire time here and not dip into that. But if you're open to it, if you do a little bit of seeking, I think it's absolutely there for you, for sure.
Yeah, but thank you so much. This is really encouraging. Thank you a lot.
Thanks.
Do you feel then equally, JJ, that being in a place where the culture is not, your firsthand experience, your firsthand culture, that you feel like you have been welcomed into the environment there, or do you feel like an outsider? I don't know how I would feel.
Yeah, it's interesting. So Oaxaca is not quite. So Oaxaca is a very popular tourist destination, but it doesn't exist for tourists. There are lots of places, too many places in Mexico that have been taken over by retired and traveling Canadians. And there are long stretches of coastline where the tourism industry is a huge, it's massive, and that brings much needed money into communities. There's lots to say for it, lots to say against it. Oaxaca is an interesting place because it is incredibly rich with art and culture, and has been a center for centuries. But a lot of the tourism that's here right now, because there's tons of people coming into town for Dia de Muertos, but mostly Mexican tourists. So like folks living all across Mexico coming to Oaxaca for the celebrations. So the vendors who are selling things in the streets I'm not the number one target.
Yeah.
It's the Mexican families that are here. They're the ones who are buying a lot of the things that are being on offer. It's not to say that I'm not welcome. I'm absolutely welcomed here. And I imagine there are some people who have lived here for a long time who are tired of all of the tourists, be they domestic or foreign. But Oaxaca is it's an interesting place for that reason. It's not, it's not a beach town. It's a high culture town. It's a music town. It's a food city. And it has been the home of many nations for centuries. So it is an interesting mix of people.
So in the celebrations to come in the next couple of days, will you purchase and put offerings on the Ofrendas? Will you try and reach out to your ancestors and people you love to invite somebody back?
Yeah, so when we did our first trip in 2019, the kind of core funding for that trip was my dad. My dad had passed on a few years before that trip, and when he died, we took a little bit of the money from his estate, and we just put it aside, and we said sometime we're going to have an opportunity to travel as a family, and then that opportunity came. And so when we were in Mexico City, Day of the Dead, everyone's setting up ofrendas, and my dad, who had passed, had sponsored our travels. We thought this is the perfect opportunity. So, and it was a great way because we were with our kids, we were homeschooling. So we as a family learned about ofrendas, and we went to the market and used our rudimentary Spanish to buy the marigolds and to buy the sugar skulls, and we learned the names of these things. Then we came back and we set up our own ofrenda with the paper decorations all around. What we hadn't done was we hadn't brought a photo, and it's a very important part of the ofrenda. So luckily I had a photo of my dad on my cell phone, And so every time we came back from a day of traveling or come back from dinner or whatever, I'd pull up the image of my dad on the cell phone, and I'd put the cell phone with his picture on it on the ofrenda. And that was kind of our way of reaching out to my dad, thanking him for sponsoring our travels. And yeah, honestly, it's one of my fondest memories of being there during that time, was creating that with my kids and with Lois, making that as a family.
That's really nice. Did you bring any pictures with you this year?
I did. I've got a whole bunch of little photos, and I'm gonna see how the mood strikes. And yeah, but I'm scoping out. I've been to the markets, seeing who's selling flowers, who's got the original paper. I don't want plastic. I want tissue paper, you know. I'm scoping it out.
Right on you, my friend. We have a hand from Ishtar. Give Ishtar a moment here. Unmute. Your signal is excellent, by the way, JJ.
Oh,
now that I put that out into the universe, right? Watch it come back and bite me in the butt. But wonder if Ishtar is maybe having a little technical difficulties.
Oh, okay. Hi.
We gotcha.
Oh, I was on mute, and I did Alt A and it didn't work, and then I had to, I don't know.
It's those gremlins.
My gremlins
they just
went
are
to
invading.
you, I guess.
And then I had to toggle around, like tab around. Oh, JJ, that I really want to be able to hear this again. This thing, I really do. Your specific, detailed descriptions were fabulous for me, and I feel so joyful and grateful because I often don't find descriptions. I sometimes just feel very upset about how they are like shorthand, and they assume that a person's site is cited or was or knows what a thing is. Like it's like an X style thing. It's like, I don't know what that is. So thank you so much for that. And
thank you.
The sucky part is I was having an artistic, what seemed like a bit of a catastrophe. So I was part of the time I wasn't listening now, and now I'm like, no, because I was trying to salvage my work. And I regret that, but also it was important work and I wanted to salvage it. But this is just so beautiful, and I love this time of year. I feel more like I feel really connected to my ancestors and other ancestors that I know, my great grandma, my dead brother, and the magic of I don't know, the magic of something about death and life and how the inextricability. And I'm not really feeling all that eloquent right now, but this is a really special time, and I could really hear how fantastic and special and fun and exuberant and flamboyant of a time that it is for many people, and also like how much you relish it and love it. And oh my God, that food. I was cooking at that time. And I was just like, oh, I really want some tangy, spicy something, but I don't have it. Yeah, thank you so much for this.
Oh,
and if there's going to be a replay, I really want to listen to it again.
It will
fully.
It will be available on our YouTube channel. Yep.
Oh, really? Yep. And I will not be doing something else at the same time part of the time.
You can watch it over and over and over if you want to. Yeah.
I saved my work though. It actually didn't disappear.
Beautiful. That's good.
So I lost a whole bunch of work before, and it's pretty devastating. And these couple things, they actually didn't disappear. Yeah.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Well, I'm glad you saved your work. And yeah, so yeah, you can find it on YouTube and listen all over again
Good.
with like bags of like, I don't know, what are you going to have? Like tamales, tostadas, tortas, chapulines.
Grasshoppers,
like,
chapulines.
yeah, exactly.
Probably no food like that, but something. Maybe some marigolds and some other
I like it.
celebratory. I think it'll be more like that.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you for your kind words. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I just love that. I love it. Thank you.
We bring JJ off we bring JJ into the space many times a year to do this kind of descriptive work. So he always brings us something special.
I should lower my hand, hey?
Whatever.
Did it lower? Oh, good. It did.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
It worked. Awesome. Thanks for that, Ishtar. I really appreciate your thoughts and comments. This has been really fun, JJ. I hope that your visits to Oaxaca and your time there is enriching for you. It sounds like it already has been. The little time you spent there already, it sounds like it's already been enriching. So I really wish that you get everything out of it that you want, that you just absorb the culture and the experience. And
thank you. I appreciate it, and I love being able to to join you in this space and to be here and to explore these ideas, because I want to do lots of this. I want to keep describing the traveling world, and I'm going to try and record some audio while I'm here and try and do some podcasting while I'm here, because I think there's an opportunity for exploration in description, and I love the opportunity to do this with you guys at VocalEye, because there aren't enough places, there aren't enough rooms like this and venues where describers can play, and I appreciate the sandbox that you guys provide.
Well, we love a day in the sandbox. Yep. Indeed. And there are, I mean, we all know this about places in the world when we talk about visuals and cultures, right? There are so many rich visuals all over this planet.
Yeah.
A friend of mine was in Thailand dragon boating, a blind friend, and the types of things that they were talking about coming back from Thailand, I was just like, my mind was blown, right? And those are just like from an experiential level, not necessarily from like the way the temples looked, because she can't see the temples, right? So like her experience being in them, and so there's it makes you want to go, but we don't all have the funds or the companions to travel with, or the time, or all of those different types of resources to be able to just get where we want to visit. And so sometimes this is the way to be able to experience things. I appreciate the fact that that you can offer us this in the space.
Cheers. Back at you, my friend.
So like, do I wish you a happy
I don't know. Yeah. Do you say happy Dia de Muerta? I don't know. Happy
I don't know. I don't know.
Hello, this is Tilo. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Tilo, we can hear you.
Sorry. I can't find my raised hand for some reason. So that's why.
Come on in.
I've never knew about Day of the Dead, but when I got my GPS, I could download some stuff, and that was downloaded, but I couldn't watch any of it, so I didn't know anything about Day of the Dead. But there was a thing here on Commercial Drive. It was called the Lost Souls, and it was a parade they used to do. And I think a week before that, in a park close by here, they would have some kind of a lantern festival.
Okay.
So I went to that once, but the parade down Commercial Drive, that was kind of fun. Yeah. So that's the only thing I know about Halloween, as far as our celebrations and that, the public and that.
Yeah, I don't know if Lost Souls Day is connected with Day of the Dead, and
no, I think it's connected more towards Halloween.
Is it?
Here, yeah, not Day of the Dead. I don't think so. I think it's a more Halloween thing.
My
I remember
actually associated with both, but it's definitely connected to Halloween because it's All Hallows
Yeah.
Eve.
Yeah.
It's not,
Halloween, yeah.
yeah.
I'm not
So-
sure what type of organization that runs these two events, because they're
It
both
says
from the same.
also, I just did a Google search. All Souls Day in Roman Catholicism, a day for communication of all the faithful departed.
It's
Oh, there you
November
go.
2nd, I believe, and
Yeah, November 2nd.
Day. Yeah.
So it sounds like it's a very similar theme of Day of the
Yeah.
Dead,
Yeah.
but a different religion. Although, to be honest with you, it sounds like kind of like the Day of the Dead when you bring in colonialism, right? Like
That's
the melding
right.
of the things. Yeah.
That's right.
Very,
Yeah.
very interesting.
Apologies for my interruption. I just, since you were
No,
asking.
it's awesome. It's
Good.
awesome. I appreciate the impromptu jumping on in. This is great. This is great. I love these events. I love when people, bring their knowledge into the space and they share. I love the conversation, and I just want to thank you again for bringing it into the space, JJ. I can't wait to the next time you're in the space, and I don't know. I know that you're going to be sharing some Star Wars, some Star Wars stuff with us in the new year, and some other things that we have teased. Well, we'll wait. And we'll share some other stuff. But,
That's right. That's right.
But I'm actually already looking forward to that event in May, because the Star Wars visuals are mind blowing. If you've seen them and never had them, there's no time to describe those in a movie, right? So.
Yeah.
And the old Star Wars versus new Star Wars versus. I
gotta get ready gotta go now. But thank you so much, guys.
Night, Megan.
Okay.
Hi, Megan.
Night.
So anytime we can have you in the space, I'm always happy to have you. So thanks so much for joining us.
Right on. Cheers. Thanks, everyone. Have a
Enjoy
great
your
night.
time in Oaxaca.
Absolutely, I will. I'm off to the park for some late night tacos.
Good for you. Eat one for me.
Right on. Night, everyone. Have a good one.
Good night.
VocalEye, vocaleye.ca. Special thanks to our funders, the Canada Council for the Arts, the British Columbia Arts Council, the Province of British Columbia, and the City of Vancouver.